Some very interesting times we live in, especially if you are part of niche collectors markets like trading card games, comics, collectibles, because you start to notice these trends that are indicative of the greater economic issues going on right now. Primarily those being that the cost of gasoline, food, infant formula, all of these prices have skyrocketed, and people are now in a little bit of a panic because they can't afford basic necessities. And this is coming after a 2 to 3 year span of people heavily investing in tangible items. That's what you do in a time of economic crisis. You begin to invest more in things that are potentially going to have a higher resale value somewhere down the road, kind of like we've seen with Pokemon sealed products. But as I've also noted several times on this channel over the course of these past couple to several years, and that the community has really been hit hard by, is that people were going way too hard on this. They were buying up every single Pokemon card they could find, whether it was a key card, whether it was a popular Pokemon. They were just buying up everything in the hopes that they were making a wise investment, when in fact it was all these people that have never been involved with Pokemon before. They don't really understand the inner workings of the trading card game. They've not been in it long enough to know that these prices ebb and flow. And I don't want to say that these types of actions necessarily crashed the market. In fact, all they've done is kind of return it to normalcy. And it is an odd place to be in, because yes, I'm happy that I can buy single cards again for a reasonable price, actually pay what they're worth, rather than this inflated version caused by the speculation market. But I don't necessarily like the circumstances in which it's happening, where, like I said before, all of these people that have been kind of blindly investing or investing without a lot of knowledge are now in a position of not being able to afford what they need for themselves and their families, and so they're having to rapidly sell off all of this product they've been accumulating, all of these investments that they have been led into making. And yeah, they're selling products for probably half of what they paid for them a year ago, 2 years ago. But regardless of those circumstances, the point of this video was I do want to go over some market changes that I've been noticing just as I'm trying to dip back into collecting. Because I'm a long-time collector, since the age of 8 or 9, I've been collecting Pokemon cards, comics, just about anything that's collectible has generally caught my attention before. But over the past couple of years, I've had to pause that just because of pricing. For you guys that have been watching the channel for a while, you know that this e-reader series of videos that I've been wanting to do has been on a long pause just because the e-reader cards have become so expensive. Those are sets that saw very limited print. They're very sought after, generally because of the artwork and because they were at the tail end of that Wizards of the Coast era. Which does bring me to the first point of discussion, which is singles. Singles are way down from where they used to be. There are exceptions, of course. So a lot of your chase cards, like your full art trainers, anything with a Charizard or a Pikachu on it, very rare cards, these are the ones that are still maintaining that high value. They have seen their own dips, but when it comes to just everyday singles, commons and uncommons, maybe even just holographic cards that look nice but aren't necessarily competitive, the prices on these are falling pretty rapidly. One recent example for me are the Skyridge Legendary Birds, which, during the pandemic were cards that I would not even think about buying because they're a really good one-off competitively for coverage in decks, but to be paying $75 for a near mint Articuno, Zapdos, or Moltres was ridiculous. Like, there's no reason for that. The price has come down quite a bit to where the near mint is around $50 now, but you can actually get a played version for about $25 to $28, which is what I've been trying to do. And the reason for such a drastic drop is because those cards aren't exactly chase cards. Not a lot of people are playing e-reader format cards. Yeah, they're legendaries, yeah, they're in Skyridge, but they're not the Pokemon you want from Skyridge. But even with your bigger base set cards, your Venusaur, Blastoise, Charizard, Gyarados, Alakazam, all of these more sought after cards are also dropping pretty quick because you had all these people that paid way overpriced, that really inflated the market, especially with Charizard, that are now finding that they're never going to be able to resell that Charizard card for what they paid for it during the height of this Pokemon boom, this height of Pokemon inflation. And so they're having to sell them off if they do want to get a return on them for much less than what they actually paid. And so you are seeing huge decreases, even in like base set Charizards, where it's going from, you know, something like $30,000 for a near mint graded copy to, you know, more of like $10,000, which is still an extremely expensive amount to have to pay for a graded card. But recognizing that it's back to normal, kind of where it should be, a $20,000 price drop is not something to ignore. You know, the Logan Paul kind of boom around these Charizards, all of this nonsense, that's starting to fade away. But that is a good segue into the second thing I wanted to talk about, which is the graded market. You have a flood of graded cards hitting the market now because PSA and CGC have been so backlogged for the past couple years. They even stopped taking submissions for a while just because they had so many cards coming in to be graded, that people lose sight of what graded collecting has always been, which is hardcore collectors sending cards off to get preserved, to have them slabbed, and when they would get them on return, they would hope for straight 10s, gem mint. A lot of graded collectors are gem mint only. That's all they want. And so when they would send out these bulk submissions and then they would get back all of these cards, there would be some 8s and 9s mixed in there. They didn't want them, so they would put them on the secondary market. They would definitely make a profit off of it. But, you know, back before the pandemic, you could buy graded cards at an 8 or a 9 for super cheap, just because the hardcore collectors that were actually sending them to get graded didn't want them. And during the pandemic, with the boom, we saw people were just buying up everything. People were buying 5s of certain cards, even going for like 3s and 4s just because they were holographic. What they're finding now, trying to re-enter the market with those graded cards, is that the collectors don't actually want them. The collectors want the high grades. Just to give you an example, I got into graded collecting maybe just like 5 or 6 months before the pandemic hit, so I got in at a really unfortunate time. But around that time, I was able to buy cards that I just liked, cards that I wanted to have preserved so that I could look at them and enjoy them, having them in my collection, like an Ancient Mew. I got a gem mint Ancient Mew. I paid $30 for it on eBay at the time. Once this pandemic boom hit, that gem mint Ancient Mew card suddenly skyrocketed to over $150. And that's ridiculous. You should never have to pay that much for a promo card that there are bajillions of them in the world. There are probably Ancient Mew stuffed under couches, you know, somewhere. But at the same time, I was buying just like a lot of common cards that I liked, like base set Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. I got gem mint versions of those cards for about 17 bucks each. During the boom, skyrocketed $70 just because they were iconic Pokemon. But I'm not a gem mint collector. Like I said, I like having them in my collection just for my own enjoyment. And if they end up paying off somewhere down the road upon resale, then great. If I'm ever in a bind and I ever need to dump a lot of product, I'll have those available. But I do like to collect more of 8s or 9s just to have the cards. I don't care if they're perfect or not. But yeah, one thing I've noticed is I've been looking out for maybe like a grade 9 base set Gyarados. One of my favorite cards from base set, if not my favorite. But it's been too expensive. You know, that's been about a $170 card. And here lately, I've been keeping an eye on it. The prices keep falling and falling. It's getting closer now to around $100 for a grade 9 PSA base set Gyarados. And I'm hoping that that continues to fall. It's not going to keep falling forever because it will hold some value. You know, those base set cards have their own inherent nostalgia value. But what we're left with now is a flooded market. For the past couple of years, people have been flooding PSA and CGC with submissions, getting back a bunch of 9s, 8s, 7s, you know, just whatever, because people were submitting with hopes that they were going to get back gold, that they were making a wise investment by sending off these bulk cards to CGC or PSA. And a lot of those people found out very quickly that their returns were not what they thought they were. They were not getting back gem mints. They probably weren't even getting back a lot of high grades in general. And so they ended up having to leave the market. Their investment did not work out. They tried to drop all of these lower grade cards that the collectors that have been mainstays in the community for so long don't want. So you have tons and tons of eBay listings of just graded cards that nobody really wants. And so now is the time, if there are specific singles that you want slabbed, that you want preserved just for the collection, now's the time to get in on it. Now, be careful. I have had a lot of people asking me about, okay, well, now that the market's going back to normal, what do I buy that is going to be a good investment for the next Pokemon boom in 5 or 10 years? And my serious answer, my personal answer is don't. Just don't invest in cards. Do it because you enjoy the products, because you like having them in your collection. Expecting a return on something like Pokemon cards, or really just any Pokemon material, because even Pokemon adjacent products have skyrocketed. But keep it in your collection because you like it. And if 10 years down the road, like I said, if you need to get rid of some stuff, you need a quick turnaround on some cash or whatever, then you will have that available. But it's the same as I'm going to talk about with sealed product here in a second, where don't just be buying up products because you expect them to gain value, to be investments, because the Pokemon Company itself has actually gotten pretty wise to these tactics and has done what they can to actually correct the market, which has worked out really well so far. So in continuing the discussion about making investments, the focus of that topic here lately has been on sealed products, just because that tends to be what holds its value the most. And when people think about that, what they're talking about is sealed booster boxes, elite trainer boxes, sometimes figure collections tend to gain value, but also the focus tends to be on vintage formats, which we've got a huge focus of on this channel when you're talking about, you know, like base, jungle, fossil, rocket. Even the 2 gym sets, those are pretty high on the market for sealed product, and those are ones that are probably never going to lose their value. In fact, the value will continue to rise, as we have seen a boom in people wanting to open sealed product from vintage products on stream. And so what you end up with is less and less sealed product out there in the world. You end up with more and more singles on the market, which is another reason that those are starting to go down as well. So for vintage sealed stuff, yes, those are probably wise investments. They will hold their value, if not gain value. But the question tends to come up a lot of, well, what modern sealed product should I buy and hold on to? And this is another area where my answer is don't. The Pokemon Company is going to keep printing as long as people are buying. And so, you know, if you're buying a sealed product, invest in yourself. Now, as cheesy as that sounds, but like with this ETB, I bought this at a Walmart just last week because I'd already opened the Sword and Shield ETB that I bought when the set actually released, and I kind of regretted that. I wish I would have held onto the sealed product just because I like it as a display product, and you know, somewhere down the road I'll probably really enjoy cracking this back open. I don't necessarily intend to resell it at any point, but the Sword and Shield set kind of marks a nostalgic time in my life, where right around that time I had just started this channel. I had just started getting back into playing the modern TCG, and so, you know, at some point I'm going to be really nostalgic for those cards and probably want to open that box. Like I said earlier, the Pokemon Company has really caught on to these trends and have just responded by printing more product. There have been huge restocks over the last couple of weeks. I know I went out to Walmart, Target, Barnes & Noble, and GameStop all on the same day, just because they're close in the same shopping area near me. And all of them were fully restocked with Shining Fates, Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage, and Brilliant Stars. So if you wanted them, you could just walk in there and buy what you wanted. Some stores still have limits on ETBs, but that was a really good opportunity for me to just go in and go, okay, well, you know, this is my opportunity to buy boxes that I'm going to want to open in the future probably, which is why I ended up with a box of Shining Fates. Like I said, it's just a good display item, and it's something that I can have fun opening up in the future for as long as I want to wait. You know, if the value does increase and I want to sell it at some point, that's great too, but that's not the reason that I'm going in on them. So yes, I am collecting some sealed products, but not with an investing mindset. If I were, I would have made some very poor decisions, because I paid MSRP for each one of those ETBs, which is like 40 bucks, and you can find them on the open market now, or the secondary market, for less than MSRP. You can buy Vivid Voltage ETBs for $35 on eBay right now. That's because there's not a lot of chase cards in that set. The pull rates aren't great, so people aren't really flocking to these Walmarts and Targets to buy them up again. It's an older set. But something of note is that certain ETBs, certain sets that do have a lot of chase cards that haven't been reprinted yet or haven't seen a huge restock, are still valuable sets, like Evolving Skies and Champion's Path in particular. Champion's Path, it's got a big Charizard right on the box, so of course people are gonna want it. Evolving Skies, people love their evolutions, and those ETBs actually look really nice. They are amazing display products. But during the height of the boom, around the time that Champion's Path actually came out, those ETBs were selling for like 200 bucks, and they're down now to around 100 bucks. You can probably get one for less if you're lucky. The Evolving Skies boxes are down to, I believe, about $60 or $70 now, last time I checked on those. But if the Pokemon Company ever announces like a huge restock, is like, yeah, we're going to refill the shelves with Champion's Path and Evolving Skies, then you're going to see the same kind of thing, where if you paid 100 bucks for one of these Charizard boxes, you're suddenly left with a $40 box, because the Pokemon Company just decided that they could add more product to the market. It is a bit confusing for me, because I don't fully understand the circumstances of how these restocks have happened. I didn't know if, if there were just huge warehouses somewhere that were still full of Sword and Shield boxes, that were still full of Vivid Voltage boxes, as to which sets in particular have seen these reprints or have seen these massive restocks, because Sword and Shield was a 2019 set, so it's a little bit weird that in 2022 it's seen a restock when Champion's Path was a 2020 set, yet there aren't any restocks, to my knowledge, in the works for that particular set. And it does depend a lot on what the future holds for Pokemon as a whole, because I remember during the Sun and Moon blocks, people did not give a shit about the TCG, except for the people that had been around playing nonstop kind of for the entirety of Pokemon, or at least for an extended period of time. But after the boom occurred, once Sword and Shield were out, people were playing those games, really enjoying those games. People wanted to get back into TCG. People were wanting to invest in tangibles again. Then you saw a boom to where suddenly all of these Sun and Moon products were skyrocketing in price, when before nobody cared about them. So there's a possibility that could happen again. Say Scarlet and Violet come out, people hate those games, those products rot on the shelf for years and years without anyone buying them. You could scoop them up for, discounted prices. I remember seeing Sun and Moon products just like sitting on the shelves at GameStop for like 20 and 30% off, because nobody was buying them. Nobody cared. Nobody really liked those games at the time. But when it comes right down to it, the best advice I can possibly give as someone that's been collecting and playing off and on since the beginning is buy a product because you like it. Then at the very least, if it loses all of its value, you still have something that's meaningful to you, something that you can get enjoyment out of. At the end of the day, this is all just cardboard. The only worth that it has is what we assign to it as a community. If you're going in with an investing mindset, you're probably going to get burned. You're probably going to be unhappy at the end. But if you're going in with a collector's mindset, or what I would call it, of just surrounding yourself with things that you love just because you love them, then you don't have to worry about that. If you end up making a wise investment somewhere down the road, then it's just gravy at that point. And as we get back into this sense of normalcy for players and collectors, try to be careful that you're not gatekeeping and thinking that just because you're trying to invest in Pokemon doesn't mean you're a real Pokemon fan. You're just one of those Logan Paul types, any of that. If people like Pokemon, let them like Pokemon. If people want to buy cards, let them buy cards. It is nice that prices are starting to go back to a reasonable level to where longtime players and collectors, or people even new to the fandom, can actually get in and enjoy it at a smaller price tag. So for you guys out there that are consistent players or that play in vintage formats, enjoy this time of normalcy and go ahead and try to get the cards that you need. Clefas are cheaper than ever. Never thought I'd see the day that you could get a $2 Clefa. But for myself too, I also want to take this time just to practice some gratitude and recognize the fact that I'm able to enjoy this hobby because I do have disposable income that I can use to buy Pokemon merchandise after I've already bought myself food and paid the bills. And that's something that a lot of people unfortunately don't have right now. A lot of people did invest, a lot of people did get on that hype train that eventually went nowhere. It went to where we're at now. And so try to keep that in mind as well. And as always, let me know down in the comments, what changes have you noticed in the market? What are your hopes? What are your fears for the market? Let me know down in the comments so we can get a discussion going, and let me know what you think about these types of videos, because I wasn't really sure about recording it, but it is something I really wanted to talk about and get out there. There is another channel that I follow called Danny Fandom, and this is a dude that created his own Pokemon card business. He's up to date on all of the individual markets for cards, sealed product, makes really great videos. So if you are interested in learning more about those specifics, looking at some charts, then head on over to Danny Fandom. That's going to be it for this one. I thank you for watching. I look forward to the discussion down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.